You're listening to the Love Unplugged podcast, episode 27. Today, I am joined by the lovely lady who co-founded Love Child Organics and Sproos, where we chat about her journey to creating two successful companies based on a need that she found in the industry, the benefits of collagen, which is a Sproos product that I swear by, and how she juggles her many responsibilities while still taking time to nurture her relationship with her husband and the one that she has with herself. So grab yourself a cup of organic tea and let's learn from the woman behind two of my favorite brands. You are listening to Love Unplugged, a podcast focused on love in all its forms. I'm your host, Jessica Fergon, hopeful romantic and founder of Project Love. I found that too often love is set aside or taken for granted, and we tend to forget how to care for ourselves and our important relationships in the day-to-day chaos. So let's slow down, tune in, and begin our journey of rediscovering love. From honest heart-to-heart conversations with real couples and knowledgeable guests to deep dive reviews of new products and services that will help you feel beautiful inside and out. If you're looking for relatable advice or wanting to be inspired by real-life love stories, you've come to the right place. Without further ado, let's get to it. Hello, friends. I am so honored to have Leah Garrett-Cole join us on the podcast today. She is the co-founder of Sproos, which provides quality enhanced collagen supplements. And she also created Love Child Organics, which provides organic purees for children. And I know that she is no longer the founder at this time. It was sold a couple years ago, but I still want to talk about all that she did in creating that business because I absolutely love those products. I even have them myself as snacks, so they're not just for children. But I'm so excited for us to dive into her journey to creating her businesses and products, but also the personal side. So how she manages all the responsibilities and navigates the challenges that come with entrepreneurship. So welcome, Leah. I'm so honored to have you as my guest, and I'm so excited to learn all about your story and amazing companies and products. But before we start, for those that don't know you yet, I'd love for you to share a little bit about who you are.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's really nice to talk to you today. So who am I? So my name is Leah, and I am a West Coaster. I grew up on a small island just off of Vancouver, and I now currently live in Whistler, British Columbia, with my husband, John, and our two kids, Poppy, who is almost 10, and Cam, who's 7. And prior to having my businesses that you've just spoken about, I was a teacher, and I did that for a long time. And then after having my children, I moved into entrepreneurship, which has been, a really incredible and very different journey.
Definitely different. So I'd love to start with your journey to creating those businesses. So let's start with Love Child Organics. Was it always something that you wanted to do in creating a business and being an entrepreneur?
No, honestly, no, it wasn't a dream of mine at all to become an entrepreneur. I always hear people say that, you're born an entrepreneur, but at least in the case of myself and my husband too, that certainly wasn't true. My dream was to become a teacher and an administrator, and that's what I did. Even though my dad was an entrepreneur, so I was certainly exposed to it, it wasn't something that I'd considered for myself at all. And then, my husband is English, and we'd actually lived together in the UK for about 9 years. He was in banking in London and I was teaching. And when we got pregnant with our daughter, we decided to move back to Canada. And at that point, we needed to figure out what we were going to do, if I was going to continue with teaching in Canada or do something else. And for my husband in particular, though, he needed to figure out what he was going to do. After going through banking in London, he didn't think that was something he wanted to do in Vancouver. He actually hadn't even enjoyed it in London that much. And so we were, that's when we started talking about starting a business. When I was deciding for me, I'd had sort of a career in education over there. And then when I came back to BC, I was going to have to substitute teach because that's kind of how it works here. You have to do that first for a while, often before you get a position. And I just didn't really feel like doing that. And so I was kind of open to new ideas. And we had known that in the UK that organic baby and children's food was really growing and doing very, very well. And because some of our friends had had children while we were over there. And so we were aware of that. And we became aware that in the market in Canada, there really wasn't very much that was available. There weren't great choices in organic baby food. And so after, lots of talking and looking at different ideas, we decided that that was the company that that we were going to start, and we gave it a go.
That's awesome that you found that opening in the market and created something that would be beneficial for children, which is amazing.
I think for me, I felt like I've been working with children for so long, and now I'd had a child, and I was really interested in children. I was becoming much more interested in food and organics and just generally our food system. By becoming a parent, those are the things you start to really look at once you're feeding your offspring. And so it felt like a good fit because I was still able to affect children's lives, but I was doing it in a different way.
That's awesome. How did you come up with those different blends, like the purees? Was it like a lot of testing yourself or?
Yes, it was. It was a lot of testing ourselves. I mean, my husband and I spent hours just in our kitchen making purees. We would blend up, like 12 different ingredients separately. So we would have like a little pot of broccoli and a little pot of apples and a little pot of sweet potatoes and then another blueberries. And then we would combine them in different in different combinations using a scale and trying to figure out what would taste good, and also looking at the sort of profile of what was in them, how many vegetables, how many fruits. And when we started, we also put quinoa into ours, which was a bit different at the time, so also trying to make that flavor work as well. So yeah, we spent many hours doing that. It was a fun thing to do together.
Were your children kind of the testers?
They were, yeah. I mean, when we started doing, I'd already been making I made all Poppy's baby food. So I'd had some practice just as a mom doing that. And then when we launched Love Child, my second, Cameron, was 8 months old. So I guess, he'd been kind of a bit too young when we'd actually developed the products, but Poppy was sort of 1.5, 2. So she certainly tasted them all. And as the business continued, Cameron became my little taster.
That's awesome. So why exactly did you choose to move away from Love Child Organics?
We'd been working in it for a few years at that point, and it was going really well. It was hard, quite honestly. We put every bit of savings that we had into it. Mm-hmm. We'd remortgaged our house. It was just difficult financially all the time, and it was so much stress. And an opportunity came available to us, or we became aware of an opportunity for a company to purchase it. Originally, we thought we were just looking for investment, but then this company wanted to purchase it. And at the time, we really had to weigh the options and decide whether we had it in us to try to keep growing it ourselves. We got it to a pretty good level at that point. It was widely distributed across Canada. Everybody knew what it was. It was, the brand had made it. But to take it to that next level, we were going to have a huge investment of capital from somewhere, which would have meant that we really probably would have lost control of the business because of the amount of money that was needed to make that happen. And so we just decided that it was best to sell it and leave then. And so that's what we did. Although I still stayed involved leading the brand for another couple of years after that. So I've been still very involved in it. Products that are just even coming out just in the last couple of months are products that I worked on. Mm-hmm. So I still had involvement for a long time, but it did take away that stress that we had that was, pretty hard on us as a couple and as a family. And also at the time, we had very young children as well. So, we always wonder, was that the right move? Was it or wasn't it? Could we have kept going? But I still think that we made the right decision at the time.
It's hard when it's your baby, when you put so much time and money into a business, but sometimes you kind of have to make those decisions and choose kind of what's best in your life.
Mm-hmm. And it was, by selling it, we were able to have some financial security that we hadn't, had in the years before. And I still think that was worth it. It wasn't enough for us to stop working by any means, but it was enough for us to be much more comfortable. And for that reason, I think it was the right choice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it's great that it worked out.
Thank you.
So I'd love to talk about Sproos Collagen because I am a huge fan of it. I take it myself. So what are the benefits of collagen? And really, at what age would you start? Because I just started probably this year at 36, but should you be starting earlier?
Well, okay. So, the benefits of collagen. Well, firstly, I think it's important so people understand a bit about collagen. So the second most plentiful substance in our body is actually collagen after water. So it's a really important part of what we are. And after the age of about 25, we make less collagen than we did when we were younger. We make about 1.5% less per year. And if so, over time, of course, this adds up. So by the time, you're 40, you're making significantly less than you were making when you were 25. And by the time you're 60, you're making even more less. And so the benefits of taking collagen is that you are helping to make up for this loss. And collagen helps, I think everyone always thinks of it just as helping skin or hair or nails. And it is really good for that. But it's also, because it's everywhere in our body, it's not just part of our skin or hair or nails. It's really great for our whole body. So it's good for joints and bones and gut health as well. It's also, it's in our blood cells. It's everywhere. And so it's really a supplement that is useful for you overall, not just for the way that you look. And in terms of like when you should start taking it, I guess there isn't really a need to take it before your body starts producing less of it. But it does seem that it starts producing less around 25. So I suppose that could be, if you were really on it, you could start taking it around then. But you certainly can start taking it at any point and see the benefits.
Awesome. What started you on this path of creating Sproos?
It was actually just as we were selling Love Child. And at the time, I was also writing my cookbook. It all begins with food. And it was selling a business is no joke. It was actually really stressful. And I unfortunately had some big health issues. I suddenly developed anaphylaxis, or like a really severe allergic reactions out of nowhere. And for basically no reason, not to a particular food. I was just suddenly going into anaphylaxis. And it happened to me about 6 times. It's happening about every month. And it was extremely scary and really was very difficult time in my life. And one of the things, and I still am, working through those health issues. One of the things that I did was I worked with a naturopath to try to rebalance my body and see if we could just try to get everything running better, to see if that would help. And it was then that I started taking collagen myself as a way to try to heal my gut, because so many of our health problems really do start in our gut. So that was actually how it started for me. And so it wasn't about my hair. It was about trying to get my body to work better. And I had, good success with it. I definitely saw big improvements in my digestion, and I wasn't having the big attacks anymore. Now, of course, I did lots of other things as well. I don't put that down just to collagen by any means, but it was one of the main things that I was doing. So that was kind of how it started. It was truly through a health crisis and a personal need. And then as I learned more and more about it, we decided, we were looking for the next thing that we wanted to do. And we decided that we would focus on collagen. And Sproos, we do plan to move out of collagen as well. The mission of our brand is making health simple, and we felt that collagen was a great place to start, but we will also move on to other sort of key ingredients as well that we feel can really, really help people in their wellness journey.
I'm so excited to hear about all that.
Yeah.
I can't wait for that to happen because I love your product.
Thank you.
So what can somebody look for when they're looking or choosing a really good quality collagen? Because there's so many out there, and you go to the health food stores and there's collagen after collagen after collagen bottles in different, pills or powders. So how do you choose the best ones?
So I think you have to think, first of all, what's important to you in terms of like the values of the company. Something to look for is definitely the sourcing of the collagen. So, for example, with Sproos, our grass-fed collagen comes from grass-fed and grass-finished cows from the USA. And the reason we've chosen those is because, first of all, there wasn't enough in Canada, so that wasn't an option for us. But we didn't want to choose collagen from Brazil, which is the most common collagen that is used for grass-fed collagen, because cattle ranching in Brazil contributes to the deforestation of the rainforest. And that was just something that we didn't want to be a part of. So while we could have provided collagen probably a bit more cheaply, if we'd done it that way, that wasn't something that we wanted to do. Our marine collagen comes from wild caught fish. And that is really important as well. When you're looking for collagen, make sure that it is wild caught. There's a lot of collagen on the market that is called sustainable collagen, but it's often from farmed fish in Asia. And for us, we feel that it's better to have wild caught fish. And we also, we think it's important to source as locally as you can. So actually our collagen is processed in Nova Scotia, which we like because we have a direct relationship with the producer. We're able to visit it. We know exactly, what is happening there. So I think that's something to look at. The other thing that you want to look at is the bioavailability. You want the collagen to have a molecular weight that is lower than 5,000 Daltons, but ideally more like 3,000, because that means that your body's going to be able to absorb it better. And you'll also find that the collagen will dissolve easier and it'll be more flavorless, which is what you want. You don't really want to be having collagen that has a fishy taste. So those are going to be the main things that I would say that you should look for. In terms of pills or powders or liquids, in those little pills, you're not really getting very much. You have to take a whole bunch of them. So it depends on how you feel about taking pills. In terms of between liquid collagen and powdered collagen, liquid collagen originated as powdered collagen and it was liquefied. So it's not necessarily any better because you're going to take powdered collagen and put it into a liquid and dissolve it. So really it ends up being the same thing. So it's really up to you whether you like to have a liquid that's already formed. Often the liquid collagens will also have sweeteners and other flavors in them and things like that. And so if that's okay with you, then that works. Otherwise, you can choose powdered and you can add it to whatever you would like.
Awesome. What are the best ways of taking the collagen powder? Do you just have to put it in water?
You can just put it in water. Yeah, you definitely can just put it in water. I prefer to put it in a smoothie. I know a lot of people put it in coffee, put it in tea. Any beverage really works very, very well. But I would say for me, my favorite way is definitely in a smoothie. I also like doing things like making like an elixir latte type of drink with it. I'll do collagen and I'll blend it with like some raw cacao powder and some cashews, a bit of MCT powder, a little bit of honey, and suddenly I've got this really delicious hot chocolate drink. I do that almost every day, actually. And then you can also put it in baking, oatmeal. It really is pretty versatile.
Okay, so there's nothing really that would kind of ruin the efficacy of it.
No, unless you are really, really, really heating it a lot, but it should be fine for anything like that.
Awesome. Okay, thank you for that. That helps me. So let's talk about the business aspects. Did you have fears that you had to kind of overcome starting your businesses or even when you sold your business? And then how did you kind of push through that so that you can get through everything?
Yes. we had a lot of fears for sure. When we started Love Child, the investment was so massive because we were making baby food in pouches and the minimum order for the packaging was absolutely huge. It was like, I can't remember the exact number, but I think it was like 180,000 per flavor or something like that. And then the manufacturer required a huge production run as well. And so our initial investment was really, really big and it was a lot for us and it was all our personal money. So it was terrifying to really sort of press the button and say go. And then once we got through that, I think it was always just fears of, are we doing the right thing or not? But at that point, you're in it. So you just have to plow through the fear and do the best that you can.
Mm-hmm. Did you have any mentors or anybody kind of supporting you in starting that business so that you were able to kind of get past that really big investment that you were putting in?
We did. We had some relatively early investors that came on sort of right when we were beginning, right when we first sort of had products. We'd already done our own personal investment, but then they came in and they had been in the industry for a while, so they were helpful. And then we also went on Dragon's Den, and then we ended up doing a deal with Arlene Dickinson and David Chilton. So they were mentors to us. We worked with them for a couple of years, and so obviously that was a huge help.
Wow. That's awesome. Is it online anywhere?
It
I
is,
love watching those episodes.
Season 8.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah. And then we actually have, they did a couple of updates on us too. So there's a couple of updates you can find as well. Little segments about us, in the following seasons as well.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. I'm going to have to look out for that. So what were the early years like for you starting those businesses? Was there anything that you struggled with the most starting the business aside from, the investment and the fears and the unknown?
I think it was just that we were learning as we went all the time. Every single thing was new. So there was that. And then also just people taking us seriously. When we were trying to even just find a manufacturer to make it for us, they thought it was ridiculous. We were just some couple from Whistler who wanted to do this, and they were used to dealing with companies like kinds. And so that was really hard. Also getting, retailers to even return an email was difficult. When we were trying to create new products that weren't pouches, trying to find manufacturers that would even speak to us about it was difficult. And as the business progressed, that all became easier because, of course, Love Child became known, and suddenly things were different. And I would say that now with Spruce, that really helps. I mean, we are not shy when we're trying to do something new with Spruce of telling people that we founded Love Child Organics. It definitely helps to have had that experience and have had that success. And it makes people much more open to wanting to work with us.
What would you suggest to entrepreneurs that are starting out, that are going through the same things where maybe they don't feel like people are taking them seriously, or they just don't feel like maybe they're viewed the way that they should be viewed by other vendors or suppliers or even the audience?
I think you just have to keep plowing through. You just have to keep calling, keep sending the emails. If you really believe in what you're doing and you can see, a path to profitability, you could see a path to having the business work, then you just have to keep on knocking on doors. You have to try to find people that have connections that could possibly help you. Try to find mentors, look for investors that have experience and connections. That's very, very helpful so that you can get to that sort of next level where suddenly those issues aren't as big anymore.
Gotcha. So knowing everything you know now with the two successful businesses, is there anything that you would do differently starting those businesses if you could go back?
Not really. I mean, I was really trying to think with Love Child, what would I do differently? I mean, there's decisions along the way that we made that I would definitely do differently. I think with Love Child, I think we would have put more effort and resource into sales. We had sort of one salesperson and that's it, doing the whole country forever. And that wasn't a great decision, but we didn't want to spend the money on another salesperson. But I think it really would have been very useful for us to have provided more resource in that area. So that would be one thing. Another thing is we decided we had an opportunity to enter the US with Love Child, and we just didn't do it very well. We made some big mistakes and it actually didn't work out, and we had to pull out of the US. So what it was that we ended up sort of entering the US into Walmart in the US, and it was just way too big. And we really should have entered in a much smaller way in one region of the US and then sort of grown that and then moved on to another region. The US is just so much different from Canada, and we didn't understand that well enough. So if I could go back in time, I would have done that differently for sure. And with Spruce, we're only just a little ways in. So I'm sure we have many more mistakes yet to make. So probably if you ask me in a couple of years, I'll have a few things I could say. But I would, the joy of starting a business the second time around is that you do make fewer mistakes, although it can be humbling too. You kind of expect when you start business number 2 that you're going to know exactly what you're doing and it's just going to be easy and take off immediately. And it just doesn't work like that. Every business is different and has its own challenges. And even with having the knowledge that we have now, some days it doesn't feel any easier than Love Child did.
Gotcha. So what does a typical day for you look like juggling all your responsibilities? So you have your business, which is thriving. It's a very great brand. And you have a relationship and your kids and obviously time for yourself. So how do you prioritize and organize yourself so that you get, the most out of the day?
I have to say this is a work in progress in quite a big way. And it's always changing, I think, partially depending on the age of my children as well and what they need. But what a day looks like for me is typically trying to get up before the kids is pretty important. For the last year or so, I've been trying to kind of actively reduce stress in my life, and I've been trying to do things that will help with that. So I've been trying to meditate in the morning, and I really enjoy that and feel that it's really brought something beneficial to my life. So I'll try to do that before the kids wake up. Although, I'll go through phases like the last month, for example, I've been terrible about it. It just, lots of things have happened and it ends up getting sort of pushed out of the way. And on an ideal day, that's what I would do. And then usually the if I get up early enough, maybe I'd even do a quick workout before the kids are up. But otherwise, I would be getting them ready, feeding the animals. We have a dog and 2 cats that are definitely my responsibility, not my husband's. And so we would sort of do all that. We would do kids drop-offs. They go to 2 different schools. So we have to drop them at different schools, which is tricky. And then usually, one of us walks the dog. And then luckily our office is just 5 minutes away. So then we would head into the office, and I usually just work school hours, and so that I can be with the kids after school. When we had Love Child, I worked really long hours, and we had a full-time nanny. And I'm trying now to not do that anymore. I'm definitely trying to work in a more part-time capacity. That's sort of an agreement that we had with starting another business, because I quite honestly still have a lot of guilt with about how much I was away from them when they were really little. So, we'll work during the day, and we'll have meetings. We have half of our team is in Toronto and half of them are out west. So we have lots of online Slack video calls and things like that. Sometimes we're at events. We do a lot of sort of in-person events, letting people try our products. So we'll do that. And then in the evenings, I'm usually driving the kids around all over the place to whatever activity they have. And then I do all the cooking for the most part. And so I'll be doing that. And then in the evening, we try to relax and do the best we can to not talk about work as much as we can, but which is tricky, of course, because when you have a business together, it never really sleeps.
No, that is a jam-packed day. I must say, you do quite a bit.
Well, I think once you have kids and you're working, that's the typical day. There's a lot of, it's so different. There's just so much. I don't know. I feel like I spend a lot of time just driving people around. Actually, that ends up being a lot of it, which isn't particularly stressful, but it is time consuming.
Definitely. So you work with your spouse. You guys are co-founders of your businesses. Mm-hmm. Working with your spouse can definitely has its pros and cons. It can be great, but there's definitely some areas that may not be so wonderful. So how do you make it work? How do you create those boundaries so that you don't bring work home as much as you should? And you clearly kind of identify who's responsible for what in the business, or like, how do you do that?
We naturally end up responsible for different things in the business because of our strengths and interests. Mm-hmm. So John is the financial person. That's his background. And so he naturally looks after that side of the business and also the operational side. I'm much more on the marketing side and the innovation side, on the, creating new products side. And so that's how it's worked for both businesses, which has been really great. And it's turned out that we're both really good at those sides of the business. So I feel lucky in that way. And I think it would be harder if we were both trying to do everything, or we're both really interested in every aspect of the business. So that works well. In terms of, setting boundaries, it's really hard. I think, especially when there's something big going on, it's difficult to not bring it home. And I find that I'm definitely better at it. And so that does cause some tension sometimes. I can really compartmentalize, and I can stop talking about Sproos in the evening. And I can stop thinking about it for the most part. Whereas my husband really can't seem to do that. So that's something we're still working on, because I find that hard. But one thing that's really great about being married and having business together is that it gives us so much flexibility. One of us will go to an event and the other one will stay home with the kids, and then we can swap, and it gives a lot of flexibility in our day. We're completely understanding when the other person needs to go out to get something else done that needs to be done for the family. We don't have to make any excuses about those things. And so it does provide a flexibility and freedom that is really valuable.
Do you feel that it's kind of brought you guys closer as well, kind of being on this passion project together?
It has. It's definitely made us know each other better, for sure. Most couples never really see their partner's work persona. Mm-hmm. You just don't. And so there's been lots of surprises there. There's been lots of really good surprises where you just think, wow, I'm so proud that my partner is that way at work. And then there's been some things where you think, huh, I'm not sure I like that about you very much. And so there's two sides to it. I don't know if it's helped. I mean, has it helped sort of romantically? Probably on a day-to-day basis, no, it hasn't, because it's hard to switch into sort of really husband and wife mode after being colleagues. But on the other hand, we've had some incredible experiences together that are very bonding. And in terms of like the journey of life that you have with your partner long term, I know these businesses are things that we will look back on as we grow old together, and we'll talk about it. And I'm sure we'll think of them as really special times.
That's awesome. Do you have any tips for couples that are wanting to work together or are currently working together on how to kind of get through any obstacles or struggles that they're experiencing kind of co-working on a...
I would say it's really hard, but you have to try to speak to your partner the way you speak to any other colleague. And we fail at it for sure, but it's something that we do keep trying to do. I find if you have the tough discussions, try to have them in the office, try to have them in a work environment rather than in a home environment, where I think it can quickly possibly escalate or turn into something that it can turn into more of an argument. And I think if you sort of keep it very professional and at work, it's easier to keep things on track. So I would say that, and I also just think knowing your responsibilities, respecting each other's roles, that's really important. And also understanding that you're going to experience or sort of witness parts of your partner that you probably don't like sometimes at work. But that doesn't mean that you don't still love them. And everybody has flaws, and they will have flaws at work just as you do. And that you just have to accept that.
That's great advice. I love that. So having two successful businesses with children and a relationship and, animals, how do you find time for yourself? Like what do you do to practice self-care and self-love?
Meditation, as I mentioned, has become a big one for me just in the last year. It's really helped me, I think, to become more mindful in the rest of my life. It's helped me become less reactive. So that's a big one, and it's something I'm trying to prioritize. As the kids get older, it's a little bit easier to prioritize self-care because they don't need me in the same way. So I can actually, do a workout while they're playing with a friend on the street. They're outside, and whereas when they're young, I would have had to have been right there with them. So I think trying to just be creative about when I sort of fit in time for myself. But I think in all honesty, I feel like this time in life, I'm in my mid-40s and life is hectic and it's not easy. It's just sort of an ongoing thing, and I have to keep on checking in and making sure that I'm doing it. And I think right now I'm probably only about 50% of the way there, maybe less. I don't think I have all the answers at this point, but I think with everything that goes on at this stage in life, it is something that's really important that we all need to try to prioritize.
Especially when you're running businesses, it's so easy to get kind of like consumed by it.
Yes, it is.
And when you lose sight of yourself and whatnot, it kind of impacts the business as well. So it's so important to do that regular check-in to make sure that you're taking that time for yourself when you need it.
I agree. And I think with the health issues that I had back, a few years ago, that is an example of not taking care of myself enough. I really wasn't taking care of myself well at all at that point, and I ended up having a major health crisis. And I always look back and wonder if I had done a better job of taking care of myself back then, would that have happened? If my stress was lower, if I'd been eating better, if I'd been making a point of having a break. I'll never know those answers, but I always tell women not to underestimate what stress can do to your body and to do what they can to try to lower it.
Definitely. It's so interesting to me because most of my podcast episodes that I've had with entrepreneurs, they've all had health crisis that has been a pivotal moment in their life to help them realize how important self-care is for them. Like including myself, it's so interesting how it takes that moment to kick us into gear on reprioritizing our needs.
I know. It is very interesting. And it makes you also look at health in a completely different way. When I was younger, I think I exercised. I'd always exercised, but I did it for totally different reasons. I did it because I wanted to, fit into a pair of jeans and look okay in a bathing suit. And now I do it because I want to be healthy, and I don't ever want to go back to those days where I was unhealthy. And I want to be able to run up a hill with my children, and I want to, not have more health issues as I get older. And so those become the reasons. And it's honestly absolutely nothing to do with the way that I look.
Yeah. It's amazing how you kind of get that knowledge as you grow up.
Mm-hmm. You do.
And yeah.
Yeah, you do. And I wish I'd learned it a little earlier.
I think we all do.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing that information and your story with us. But if anybody wants to learn more about you, where can they connect with you?
You can find me on Instagram at Leah Garrett Cole. And you can also learn more about Sproos on our website, which is sprucelife.com. Those are probably the best ways.
Awesome. And I can't wait to see what else comes out for Sproos. I'm definitely going to keep my eye out for that. Do you have any dates in mind or?
I could tell you about a couple of things. So we actually previously launched some bars that had collagen, and they were good, but they weren't as good as we needed them to be. So we're actually relaunching them in January. We're super happy with them. So those will be coming out then. And then we are trying something new, not in collagen, in the fall. So I can't tell you what it is yet, but in the fall you can expect us to go in a little bit of a different direction.
And fall next year?
Yes, fall 2020.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, well, I'm going to keep my eyes peeled for that.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Leah, for taking the time to share your story with us and for giving us such great advice, but for creating amazing quality products that are good for our health, but that taste awesome.
Well, you're so welcome. It's my pleasure. And I really enjoyed our chat.
Me too. I'm Jessica, and thanks for tuning in today to Love Unplugged, the podcast. If there are any questions or topics you'd love answered on the show, head on over to www.projectloveco.com and share your request with me. If you haven't yet, go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast and share it with a loved one. Your feedback means the world to me, and the community we've created is what fuels our discussions here. After all, this is all for you. Join me next time for another unplugged conversation.